I stood frozen outside Dad's office door, listening to words that shattered my entire world. "Don't worry, Tyler, we'll make your sister pay for everything. The wedding, the house down payment, even your student loans. Ashlyn's got that fancy job now." My blood turned ice cold as Mom chimed in. "She owes us after all we've sacrificed for her ungrateful behind." 28 years of believing I was loved, wanted, valued, gone in 60 seconds. I backed away silently, my hands already reaching for my phone to call my financial advisor. My legs carried me upstairs to my childhood bedroom on autopilot, my mind reeling from what I'd just heard. The pale yellow walls still displayed my high school achievement certificates, now feeling like cruel mockeries. I sank onto the twin bed with its faded floral comforter, trying to process the devastating conversation that had just torn apart everything I thought I knew about my family. The words echoed in my head like a broken record. "Make your sister pay for everything. She owes us. Ungrateful." Each phrase felt like a physical blow, knocking the wind from my lungs and leaving me gasping for understanding. I forced myself to think back through the years, searching for signs I'd missed. How had I been so blind to the favoritism that now seemed glaringly obvious? Tyler, 3 years younger, had always been the golden child who could do no wrong. When he failed his sophomore year of college, it was the professors who didn't understand his learning style. When he dropped out junior year to start a photography business, it was entrepreneurial spirit. When that business failed within 6 months, it was the economy's fault. Meanwhile, every achievement of mine had been diminished or overlooked entirely. When I graduated summa cum laude with my finance degree, the family dinner conversation centered on Tyler's new girlfriend. When I landed my first job as a junior analyst, Dad merely grunted that it was about time I started contributing. When I got promoted to senior analyst last year with a salary that finally allowed me to breathe financially, Mom's only comment was that money didn't make up for my lack of family devotion. I pulled out my laptop and began scrolling through old family photos, seeing them now through a completely different lens. There was Tyler's high school graduation party catered with 50 guests and professional photography. My own graduation celebration had been pizza at home with just the immediate family. Tyler's 21st birthday was a weekend trip to Las Vegas that cost thousands. Mine was dinner at Applebee's. The pattern was so clear now that I wondered how I'd rationalized it away for so long. Every family gathering, Tyler was the center of attention. His opinions mattered. His problems received immediate family conferences. His needs became everyone's priority. I was expected to be the responsible one, the one who had everything figured out, the one who didn't need support or encouragement. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Sarah. "How's the family visit going?" I stared at the message, unable to formulate a response. How could I explain that I just discovered my entire family saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM? I walked to my old desk and pulled out a manila folder I'd kept since college: financial aid documents, scholarship letters, work-study records. Everything I'd achieved had been through my own effort and merit. I'd worked 25 hours a week throughout college while maintaining my grades, lived on ramen noodles and generic mac and cheese, worn the same 3 outfits on rotation because I couldn't afford more. And apparently my parents had been telling people I was ungrateful. The injustice burned in my chest like acid. I thought about all the times I'd sent money home when they mentioned tight finances. The $500 for Dad's car repairs, the $800 for emergency medical bills, the $1,200 to help with property taxes. Money I'd sent without question, believing I was helping family members who loved and supported me. Now I realize those weren't emergencies at all. They were tests. Practice runs for the main event where they'd expect me to fund Tyler's entire adult life. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly closed my laptop. Tyler's voice drifted up from downstairs, laughing with Mom about something. The sound that once brought comfort now made my stomach clench with anxiety and anger. My phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. It was Marcus, my financial advisor. "Hey Ashlyn, I know it's Sunday, but I wanted to follow up on our conversation about your investment portfolio expansion. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" "Actually, Marcus, something's come up, something important. Can you stay available tonight? I might need to make some immediate changes to my accounts. There was a pause. Of course. Is everything all right? You sound upset. I'm about to be a lot more than upset. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'll call you back within the hour. As I hung up, I walked to my childhood dresser and opened the top drawer. Hidden beneath old t-shirts was a small wooden box I'd kept since middle school. Inside were report cards, honor roll certificates, scholarship notifications, every piece of documentation of my academic and professional achievements that my parents had never bothered to display or celebrate. At the bottom of the box was a letter I'd written to myself on my 18th birthday, sealing it with a promise to open it on my 30th. I broke that promise, now tearing open the envelope with trembling fingers. The letter was written in my younger self's careful handwriting, "Dear future me. I hope by now you've found people who appreciate you for who you are, not what you can provide. I hope you've learned the difference between love and obligation. I hope you're brave enough to choose yourself when everyone else expects you to choose them. Love past you." The words hit me like a revelation. My 18-year-old self had somehow sensed what I was too naive to recognize then, that my family's version of love came with a price tag attached. I walked back to the window and looked down at the backyard where Tyler was now sitting on the porch swing, talking animatedly on his phone. As I watched, he gestured broadly with his free hand, the same way he always did when he was bragging or trying to impress someone. That's when I noticed the stack of papers on my old nightstand documents I hadn't seen when I first came upstairs. My hands shook as I picked them up and read the letterhead, "Personal Loan Application, Guarantor Information Required." My name was filled in as the cosigner. The loan amount was for $35,000. I hadn't signed anything. But there, in black and white, was my financial information, my salary, my bank account, numbers, my social security number, information that could only have come from family members who had access to my personal documents during visits home. The room spun around me as the full scope of their betrayal became clear. This wasn't just about expecting me to pay for Tyler's future expenses. They'd been planning to legally bind me to his debts without my knowledge or consent. I grabbed my purse and keys, my movements sharp and purposeful now. The hurt was crystallizing into something far more powerful: determination. They wanted to make me pay for everything they were about to learn, exactly how much that was going to cost them. I drove straight to the 24-hour diner on Main Street, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. The fluorescent lights inside cast everything in harsh relief as I slid into a corner booth, with my laptop and phone ordering coffee I didn't want just to justify taking up space. Marcus answered on the first ring. "Ashlyn, what's going on? I need to know exactly who has access to my financial information and how to remove them immediately," I said without preamble. "I also need to know if anyone has been monitoring my accounts or making inquiries about my assets." "Whoa, slow down. What happened? Are you talking about identity theft?" "Worse. Family theft." I explained the loan application with my forged information, my voice growing steadier with each detail. "I need to know everything, Marcus. Every account, every person listed, every piece of financial information that could be accessed by anyone other than me." The silence on the other end stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Marcus spoke, his professional tone tinged with concern. "Ashlyn, I'm pulling up your files now. You're going to want to sit down for this." "I'm already sitting." "When you were a minor, your parents opened a custodial savings account for your college fund. Standard procedure. But when you turned 18, instead of transferring full control to you, they kept themselves listed as joint account holders. Technically, they have legal access to monitor and even withdraw from that account." My coffee cup rattled against the saucer as I set it down. "How much money is in that account?" "Currently, about $47,000. But here's the concerning part. There are records showing regular monitoring activity from IP addresses that aren't yours. Someone's been checking your balance transaction history and growth patterns almost weekly for the past 8 months. The diner suddenly felt too hot, too bright, too exposed. What else? There are also inquiries on your credit report from 3 different lending institutions over the past 2 months. Soft pulls, which means someone was getting preliminary information about your creditworthiness without triggering alerts. And Ashlyn, there are notes in your file about family references. Your parents provided financial background information about you to someone claiming they were helping you apply for a mortgage. I'm not buying a house. I know. But someone used their relationship to you to gather detailed financial intelligence. They know your salary, your investment portfolio value, your debt-to-income ratio, everything. I felt violated in a way I'd never experienced before. It wasn't just the money, it was the systematic invasion of my privacy, the calculated planning, the complete disregard for my autonomy. Marcus, I need you to walk me through exactly how to protect myself. Tonight. Right now. We can start immediately. First, we need to remove their access from that joint account. I can initiate that process online, but you'll need to come in tomorrow to sign documents and provide identification. Second, we should open new accounts at different financial institutions that they have no knowledge of or connection to. I pulled out a notebook and began writing furiously. What else? Credit monitoring with alerts for any new inquiries or applications, a fraud alert on your social security number, and honestly, Ashlyn, you should consider documenting everything for potential legal action. What they've done using your information without consent, monitoring your accounts, providing your financial details to third parties, it's not just unethical, it's potentially criminal. As Marcus outlined the steps, I felt the first spark of empowerment I'd experienced since overhearing that devastating conversation. Knowledge was power, and for the first time in my life, I was going to use that power to protect myself, instead of making myself vulnerable to people who saw me as a resource to be exploited. There's something else, Marcus continued, that lending inquiry activity. The timing corresponds with someone doing serious financial planning. This isn't casual browsing, Ashlyn. Someone has been building a comprehensive picture of your assets for months, possibly longer. Tyler's getting married in 6 months. I said, the pieces clicking into place. They've been planning this since he got engaged. That makes sense. The amounts and timing suggest someone was calculating your capacity to fund major expenses. Wedding costs, down payments, loan obligations. They've been treating your finances like their financial planning tool. I thought about Emma Tyler's fiancé and her bubbly personality that had always seemed slightly performative. Had she been in on this from the beginning? Was her friendliness toward me just another manipulation tactic? Marcus, can you see if there have been any discussions about using my credit or assets as collateral for loans? I can check for hard inquiries that might indicate loan applications, but I can't access lending institution files without your authorization for specific companies. Do you have any idea which banks or lenders might be involved? I looked at the loan application papers I'd brought with me, studying the letterhead and contact information. First National Bank Riverside Credit Union and something called Premier Financial Services. I know those institutions. Let me make some calls tomorrow and see what information I can gather. In the meantime, we need to start moving your money tonight. How much liquid cash are you comfortable relocating immediately? I did quick mental calculations. Everything in checking and savings that isn't needed for immediate expenses. Probably around $23,000. I can help you open accounts at Mountain View Bank and Pacific Trust. They're completely separate from any institution your family has relationships with. We can initiate transfers online tonight and complete the paperwork tomorrow. As we worked through the technical details, I felt my panic transforming into strategic focus. Each account number changed, each password updated, each security question modified was a small victory in reclaiming control over my own life. One more thing Ashlyn, Marcus said as we finished the initial transfers. You mentioned they've been telling people you're ungrateful and selfish. That's a classic manipulation tactic controlling the narrative to justify future actions. If they've been setting up a story where you're the villain for not supporting family, it makes it easier for them to pressure you or even take legal action if they've forged documents. Legal action. If they've committed fraud by using your information without consent, they might try to claim it was a family arrangement that you're now backing out of. Character assassination serves to make you look unreliable if this escalates to legal proceedings. The implications sent a chill through me. This wasn't just about money, it was about destroying my reputation and credibility to cover their own criminal behavior. Marcus, what would you do if this was your family? Honestly, I'd document everything, protect all my assets, and prepare for the possibility that they might escalate their manipulation tactics when they realize their plan isn't working. People who feel entitled to other people's money rarely back down gracefully when confronted. As I sat in that fluorescent-lit diner transferring my life savings away from the people who'd given me life, I realized I was about to find out exactly how far my family was willing to go to get what they felt they deserved. And for the first time in 28 years, I was prepared to fight back. I barely slept that night, my mind racing through financial security protocols and family betrayal revelations in equal measure. The next morning, I returned home to find Emma's silver Honda Civic parked in our driveway trunk open and overflowing with wedding magazines, fabric samples, and what appeared to be enough bridal planning materials to stock a small boutique. Emma burst through the front door as I was pouring coffee, her arms laden with binders and her face glowing with bridal excitement. Ashlyn, perfect timing. I've been dying to show you all the gorgeous ideas I've been collecting for the wedding. Her enthusiasm felt aggressive in the bright kitchen light. Emma had always been bubbly, but today there was an undercurrent of presumption that made my skin crawl. She dumped her materials across the kitchen table with the confidence of someone who belonged here, someone whose plans were already approved and funded. I know you're going to love what we've put together. She continued, not waiting for my response. Tyler and I have been working with this amazing wedding planner, and she's helped us create the most beautiful vision. Look at this. She spread open a thick binder labeled Hartwell Morrison Wedding in elegant script. The first page was a budget breakdown that made my coffee cup freeze halfway to my lips. Total wedding cost $87,400. The line items were itemized with meticulous detail: venue, rental, catering, photography, videography, floral arrangements, transportation, honeymoon, rehearsal, dinner. But what made my blood pressure spike was the column on the right labeled Payment Responsibility. My name appeared next to 60% of the expenses. Isn't this exciting? Emma gushed, apparently oblivious to my stunned expression. Your parents already confirmed that you'd want to contribute significantly to Tyler's special day. They said you've always been so generous with family celebrations. I set down my coffee with deliberate care, afraid I might throw it otherwise. They said, what now? Oh, you know how modest you are. Your mom was just telling me yesterday how you've been saving up specifically to help with wedding expenses. She said you'd probably be too shy to offer directly, but that you'd be hurt if we didn't include you in the planning process. The manipulation was so smooth, so perfectly crafted, that I almost admired its artistry. They'd positioned my potential refusal as selfishness while making Emma believe I was eagerly waiting to fund her dream wedding. Emma, when exactly did my parents tell you I'd be contributing to the wedding? Oh, it's been part of the conversation from the beginning. Even before Tyler proposed, your mom mentioned how family weddings are family investments. She said you'd understand the importance of starting Tyler's marriage off on the right foot financially. Before Tyler proposed. They'd been planning to spend my money before he'd even asked Emma to marry him. And Tyler. What did he say about this financial arrangement? Emma's smile faltered slightly. Well, you know Tyler. He's not comfortable talking about money. But he did mention how lucky he is to have such a successful sister who understands family loyalty. She flipped through several pages, each more extravagant than the last. The venue was a historic mansion with gardens and a gazebo. The catering was a 7-course plated dinner with premium wine selections. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Tuscany, staying at luxury resorts and taking private tours of vineyards. Emma, this is a very expensive wedding. Oh, I know, but your parents explained that you've always believed experiences are more important than things. They said you'd rather spend money on creating beautiful memories for people you love than just letting it sit in bank accounts. I wondered if my parents had actually said those words or if Emma was paraphrasing their manipulation. Either way, they'd clearly spent considerable time crafting a narrative that painted my hypothetical financial contribution as my own idea. Can I see the vendor contracts? Of course, I'm so glad you want to review everything. It shows how much you care about getting every detail perfect. Emma produced another binder filled with contracts, deposits, and payment schedules. As I read through them, my stomach dropped further with each page. Multiple vendors had signed agreements with payment schedules that listed Ashlyn Morrison as the primary financial contact for the majority of expenses. I hadn't signed any of these contracts. I hadn't even seen them before today. But somehow, my name, phone number, and employment information appeared throughout the paperwork as the guaranteed payment source. Emma, did Tyler sign these contracts? Oh yes, he handled all the vendor meetings. He said you were too busy with work to attend, but that you'd given him authorization to move forward with planning. He's been so sweet taking care of all the details, so you don't have to worry about anything except showing up. The room began to tilt around me. Tyler had been forging agreements using my name and financial information for months. Emma genuinely believed I was an enthusiastic financial partner in their wedding planning, when in reality I was being systematically committed to expenses without my knowledge or consent. Emma, I need to ask you something directly, and I need you to give me a completely honest answer. Her bright expression dimmed slightly, sensing the shift in my tone. Has Tyler ever mentioned having any financial difficulties? Any problems with employment or debts? Financial difficulties? No, not at all. He's been telling everyone how well his freelance photography business is doing. Just last week, he mentioned booking 3 corporate events for next month. Why would you ask that? My heart sank. Tyler hadn't just been lying to our parents about his unemployment. He'd been lying to his fiancée, creating an elaborate fiction about his professional success while planning to fund their entire lifestyle with my money. Emma, when was the last time you actually saw evidence of Tyler's photography income, paychecks, client payments, anything concrete? Well, he handles all his own business finances. He said it's easier to keep work and personal money separate until after we're married. But he's been paying for our dates, and he bought me this gorgeous necklace for my birthday last month. She touched a delicate silver chain at her throat. He said business has been so good he wanted to splurge on something special. I recognized that necklace. I'd helped Mom pick it out for Tyler to give Emma, and Dad had mentioned reimbursing Tyler for the $300 purchase because he was temporarily short on cash. Tyler hadn't paid for Emma's gift. Our parents had, which meant our parents had been funding Tyler's relationship while planning to bill me for everything, including the romantic gestures he was taking credit for. Emma, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. Tyler has been unemployed for months. He has no photography clients, no business income, and significant credit card debt. The money he's been spending on dates and gifts has been coming from our parents, who are planning to charge everything back to me. The color drained from Emma's face. That's not possible. Tyler wouldn't lie to me about something so important. I pulled out my phone and showed her the loan application I'd photographed the night before. This is a loan application with my name forged as a guarantor. Tyler is planning to borrow $35,000 against my credit without my knowledge. Emma stared at the document, her hands beginning to tremble. This has to be some kind of mistake. Emma, I'm sorry. I know this is devastating, but I need you to understand that you've been planning a wedding based on money that was never offered and employment income that doesn't exist. She sank into a kitchen chair, the wedding binders scattered around her like the ruins of her dreams. But your parents said... They told me you were excited about the wedding. They said you'd been hoping Tyler would find someone worthy of the family investment. My parents have been lying to both of us. They've been lying to you about my willingness to pay, and they've been lying to me about Tyler's financial situation. We're both victims of their manipulation." Emma's eyes filled with tears as the reality sank in. Everything Tyler's told me about his success, about our future financial security, about being able to afford the house we've been looking at, it's all been lies. I'm afraid so. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. How could he do this to me? How could your parents let me believe something so completely false? Because they never saw you as a person who deserved the truth. They saw you as another tool to manipulate me. Your happiness, your trust, your future financial security, none of that mattered to them as long as they got what they wanted. Emma looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. What am I supposed to do now? I've already sent save-the-date cards. My family has booked flights. I've been planning this wedding for 8 months, and now you're telling me none of it was real. Emma, I'm going to help you figure this out. But first you need to know that Tyler's deception goes even deeper than unemployment. He's been actively using my personal information to commit fraud. This isn't just about a wedding that can't be afforded. It's about criminal behavior that could destroy both our financial futures. As I watched Emma's fairy tale wedding dreams crumble around her, I realized that my family's betrayal had created multiple victims. They hadn't just stolen from me, they'd stolen Emma's ability to make informed decisions about her own life. And tomorrow I was going to make sure Tyler faced the consequences of every lie he'd told. Tyler strolled into the kitchen the next morning with the casual confidence of someone who believed he controlled every variable in the room. He wore his favorite designer jeans, the ones I now realized our parents had probably purchased, and carried his expensive camera equipment bag like a prop in his performance as a successful photographer. "Morning, sis." He dropped into the chair across from me with practiced nonchalance. "Emma said you two had a great chat yesterday about the wedding planning. She was so excited that you're finally getting involved in the details." I studied his face carefully, looking for any sign that he knew Emma had left yesterday in tears after discovering the truth about his unemployment and lies. His expression remained perfectly pleasant, which told me everything I needed to know about his capacity for deception. "Tyler, we need to talk." "Sure. Actually, perfect timing. I've been meaning to discuss some family financial stuff with you anyway." He pulled out a manila folder and spread several documents across the table. "I know we don't usually talk about money directly, but with the wedding coming up and Emma and me starting to think seriously about our future, I figured it was time for a real conversation about family responsibilities." The audacity was breathtaking. He was going to manipulate me while pretending it was a mature discussion about shared values. "Family responsibilities," I repeated. "Exactly. Look, I know you've worked really hard to build your career, and Mom and Dad and I are all proud of your success. But success doesn't mean much if you don't use it to help the people who helped you get there, right?" He slid the first document toward me, a breakdown of his monthly expenses that included wedding costs, projected house payments, car loans, and living expenses. The total was more than my entire annual salary. "Tyler, before we discuss family responsibilities, I think we should clarify some facts about your current situation." My situation. He laughed a sound that now struck me as calculated rather than genuine. "My situation is great. The photography business is really taking off. I've got corporate clients lined up through spring, and Emma and I are looking at some beautiful houses in the Riverside development." "When was your last paid photography job?" The question landed like a physical blow. Tyler's confident expression flickered for just a moment before he recovered his composure. "Why would you ask that?" "You know, I don't like mixing family conversations with business details. Because Emma deserves to know the truth about the man she's planning to marry, and I deserve to know the truth about the brother who's been forging my signature on loan applications." Tyler's mask slipped completely. His face flushed red and his eyes darted toward the doorway as if checking for escape routes. "I don't know what you think you know, but you're obviously confused about something." 6 months, Tyler. You've been unemployed for 6 months living off credit cards and money from mom and dad while telling Emma you're a successful businessman. You've signed wedding vendor contracts using my name as financial guarantor without my knowledge or consent. You've applied for loans with my information as collateral, and you've been letting your fiancé plan a life based on income you don't have and money I never agreed to provide. You're being dramatic. Family helps family. That's how it works. Family helps family through temporary difficulties with honesty and respect. Family doesn't commit fraud and identity theft while lying to everyone involved. Tyler stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You know what your problem is, Ashlyn. You've forgotten where you came from. You've gotten so caught up in your corporate job and your savings account that you've lost sight of what really matters. What really matters? Loyalty, family, understanding that your success is only meaningful if you use it to lift up the people who sacrificed for you. His voice rose with righteous indignation. Do you have any idea what mom and dad gave up to support your education? The vacations they didn't take, the things they didn't buy, the financial strain they endured so you could have opportunities. Tyler, they took money from my college fund to pay for your failed business venture. They've been monitoring my bank accounts without permission. They've been spreading lies about my character to extended family members. They're not victims who sacrificed for me. They're manipulators who've been treating me like a personal ATM since I became financially independent. That's not how they see it. How do you see it, Tyler? He began pacing the kitchen, his movements agitated and defensive. I see a sister who has more money than she knows what to do with, living alone in an expensive apartment, spending money on herself, while her brother struggles to build a life with the woman he loves. Tyler, you're not struggling to build a life. You're refusing to build a life. There's a difference. I'm trying. Do you think it's easy starting a creative business? Do you think it's simple to find clients and build a reputation when you don't have family connections in the industry? Then get a job while you build your business. Work retail wait tables, do temp work, anything that provides honest income instead of living off lies and other people's money. You make it sound so easy. It is easy, Tyler. It's exactly what I did. I worked 25 hours a week through college, took out student loans. I'm still paying off, lived on generic food and thrift store clothes. I didn't have anyone paying my bills or covering my mistakes or promising to fund my dreams with someone else's money. Tyler stopped pacing and turned to face me directly. Fine. You want the truth? Here's the truth. You owe us, all of us. You think your success happened in a vacuum. You think you got where you are without help. What helped specifically? A roof over your head, food on your table, parents who believed in you when nobody else did, a family that provided emotional support and encouragement when you were struggling in school. Tyler, you just described the basic responsibilities of parenthood. That's not special sacrifice. That's literally what parents are supposed to do for their children. And children are supposed to take care of their families when they're successful. Children are supposed to become independent adults who make their own choices about how to use their resources. Children are not supposed to become ATMs for family members who refuse to take responsibility for their own lives. Tyler slammed his hand down on the table, making the documents jump. You're being selfish, Ashlyn. Completely selfish. Do you understand what you're doing to Emma? She's been planning this wedding for months, telling her friends and family about our future together, believing that we're going to have the security to start a family soon. Are you really going to destroy her happiness just to prove some petty point about independence? I'm not destroying Emma's happiness, Tyler. You already did that when you built your relationship on lies. Emma deserves a partner who's honest about his financial situation and employment status. She deserves to make informed decisions about her future instead of being manipulated into believing fairy tales. She doesn't need to know every detail about temporary employment challenges. 6 months isn't temporary, Tyler. And unemployment isn't the real issue here, the fraud is. You've committed crimes using my identity. You've signed contracts using my name. You've applied for loans with my information as collateral. This isn't about family loyalty anymore. This is about criminal behavior. Tyler's face went pale. You wouldn't report your own brother to the police. Try me. We stared at each other across the kitchen table, the air crackling with years of unspoken resentment and newly revealed truths. Tyler's confident facade had completely crumbled, leaving behind a desperate man who'd painted himself into a corner with lies and was now facing consequences he'd never seriously considered. What do you want, Ashlyn? I want you to tell Emma the truth about everything. Your employment status, your debts, your lies about income, the fact that you can't afford the wedding you've been planning. I want you to contact every vendor you've signed contracts with using my name and explain that you committed fraud. And I want you to get a real job and start taking responsibility for your own life. And if I don't, then I document everything and let law enforcement handle it. Tyler sank back into his chair, the weight of reality finally settling on his shoulders. You'd really destroy our family over money. Tyler, you destroyed our family when you decided to commit fraud against me. I'm just refusing to be complicit in covering up your crimes anymore. As I watched my brother grapple with the consequences of his choices, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The little boy I'd once protected from playground bullies was gone, replaced by a man who'd chosen manipulation and lies over honest work and genuine relationships. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally seeing Tyler clearly. And what I saw was someone who needed to learn that actions have consequences, even when those actions are committed against family members who love you. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom with my laptop open and 3 different phones spread across the desk, my personal cell, my work phone, and a prepaid phone I'd purchased that afternoon to ensure completely private communications. The digital clock glowed 11:47 p.m. as I methodically worked through Marcus's financial protection checklist. The first priority was removing my parents' access from the joint savings account they'd been monitoring. Marcus had walked me through the online process, but seeing my family's names disappear from my financial records felt like cutting an umbilical cord I hadn't realized was still attached. $47,000 transferred to my new account at Mountain View Bank within minutes, leaving the old account with a balance of 0 and a clear message that their surveillance days were over. Next came the credit monitoring setup. As I input my social security number into the fraud protection service alerts, immediately began populating my screen. 3 credit inquiries in the past month from institutions I'd never contacted, 2 applications for store credit cards at retailers I hadn't visited, 1 mortgage pre-approval request for a property I'd never heard of. My stomach churned as the full scope of the identity theft became clear. Tyler hadn't just been planning to use my money, he'd been actively using my credit for months, testing the waters to see what he could access without triggering my attention. Marcus called as I was documenting the unauthorized credit activity. Ashlyn, I've been doing some research on those lending institutions you mentioned. You're going to want to hear this, but it's not good news. How not good? Premier Financial Services isn't just any lender. They specialize in high-risk loans, secured by family guarantees. They market specifically to people who want to borrow against relatives' assets. The application process is designed to make it easy for borrowers to commit family members as co-signers without the family member's direct involvement. I closed my eyes, feeling the last vestiges of hope that this was all a misunderstanding evaporate completely. You're saying they've designed a system that enables fraud. They operate in a legal gray area. Technically, they require authorization from guarantors, but they don't verify that authorization independently. If someone has access to a family member's financial information and can forge signatures convincingly, the institution provides plausible deniability. What about the other banks? First National and Riverside Credit Union have both received applications listing you as a co-signer for significant loans. The applications include detailed financial information that could only have come from someone with intimate knowledge of your accounts and employment history. I pulled up the documents Tyler had shown me that morning, cross-referencing loan amounts with the expenses he'd outlined. Marcus, the total amount they're trying to borrow against my credit is over $100,000. I know. And here's the concerning part: some of these applications show pre-approval status, which means if Tyler completes the process and forges your signature on the final documents, the money could be disbursed before you're even aware the loans exist. The room felt like it was shrinking around me. How is that legal? It's not. But proving fraud after money has been disbursed and spent is much more complicated than preventing fraud before it occurs. These institutions count on family loyalty, preventing victims from prosecuting their own relatives. I thought about Tyler's desperate expression that morning, his panic when I'd threatened to involve law enforcement. Had he already completed some of these applications? Was money already being moved into accounts I couldn't track? Marcus, I need to know if any money has already been disbursed on these loans. I can check for new accounts opened in your name and look for unusual deposit activity on your credit report. Give me a few minutes to run some searches. While Marcus investigated, I continued transferring assets to secure institutions. My investment portfolio, retirement accounts, even the small checking account I used for automatic bill payments, everything moved to banks that had no relationship with my family or their financial institutions. The process was tedious but empowering. Each transfer felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been held hostage by people who saw my success as their personal financial resource. My work phone buzzed with an email from HR marked Urgent Employment Verification Request. My blood ran cold as I opened the message and read that Premier Financial Services had contacted my employer requesting income verification for a loan application I had supposedly submitted. Tyler hadn't just stolen my financial information, he'd involved my workplace in his fraud scheme. I immediately forwarded the email to Marcus and called the HR emergency line. This is Ashlyn Morrison, employee ID 7749. I need to speak with someone immediately about a fraudulent employment verification request. The HR manager on duty, Patricia, sounded alarmed. Ashlyn, we received the verification request this afternoon. The lending institution said you were applying for a mortgage and needed employment confirmation. We were planning to process it tomorrow morning. Patricia, I haven't applied for any loans. This is identity theft involving a family member. Please flag my employment file to prevent any information from being released without my direct authorization in person with photo identification. Of course, I'm adding security alerts to your profile right now. Ashlyn, should we be concerned about your safety? This sounds like a serious situation. I'm safe, but this may escalate. The perpetrator has access to extensive personal information and has been planning this fraud for months. I may need to take some time off while I resolve the legal aspects. Whatever you need. I'm documenting everything and will make sure our legal department is aware of the situation. Marcus called back as I was finishing with HR. Ashlyn, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that no loan money has been disbursed, yet all the applications are still in processing stages. The bad news is that I found evidence of attempted bank account openings using your information. What kind of accounts? Business checking accounts at 2 different banks, both listed under Morrison Photography Services, with you as the primary account holder and Tyler as an authorized signer. The applications were submitted 3 weeks ago, but haven't been approved because they require additional documentation. My vision blurred with rage. Tyler had been planning to open business accounts in my name, giving himself access to establish credit lines and loans that I would be legally responsible for while he controlled the money. Marcus, this is conspiracy-level planning. This isn't desperate desperation. This is calculated criminal behavior. I agree. And there's something else. I contacted a colleague who works in financial crimes investigation, and she said this pattern family members using detailed financial information to establish credit relationships without consent is becoming increasingly common. She recommended documenting everything and filing a police report before the perpetrators can claim the victim was a willing participant who changed their mind later. What do I need to do? Tomorrow morning, we meet at the police station with copies of all the fraudulent applications, your bank records, showing unauthorized monitoring and the forged loan documents. We file a formal complaint for identity theft and fraud. Then we contact the district attorney's office about potential felony charges. I stared out my childhood bedroom window at the darkened neighborhood where I'd grown up believing family loyalty was sacred. Tomorrow, I was going to take legal action against my own brother for systematically stealing my identity and financial future. Marcus, what if he claims this was all a misunderstanding? What if my parents say they gave him permission to use my information for family financial planning? That's why we're documenting everything tonight. Consent requires informed knowledge and explicit agreement. You can't consent to something you don't know about, and you can't be committed to financial obligations through third-party agreements you never signed. As Marcus outlined the legal protections available to identity theft victims, I felt something fundamental shift in my understanding of family relationships. Love didn't require financial sacrifice. Loyalty didn't mean accepting criminal behavior, and protecting myself from people who wanted to exploit me wasn't selfish, it was necessary for survival. I spent the rest of the night creating a comprehensive timeline of every suspicious financial activity, every conversation where my assets were discussed without my knowledge, every instance where my family had prioritized Tyler's wants over my autonomy. By dawn, I had assembled a portfolio of evidence that would either save my financial future or destroy my family relationships forever. As it turned out, Tyler and my parents had already made that choice for me. Monday morning brought an unexpected email that felt like the universe providing exactly what I needed at precisely the right moment. The subject line read, "Senior Financial Analyst Position, Denver Office. Immediate consideration from Rebecca Martinez, Regional Director at Sterling Financial Group." I'd submitted my resume to Sterling 6 months earlier for a position that had been filled internally, but apparently they'd kept my information on file for future opportunities. As I read through the details, my heart rate accelerated, with possibilities I hadn't dared to imagine just days earlier. The position was everything I dreamed of: professionally senior analyst role, with a team of 12 specializing in corporate restructuring and investment strategy. The salary was 43% higher than my current position. The signing bonus alone would replace everything Tyler had attempted to steal from me. Most importantly, the job was in Denver, Colorado, 900 miles away from the family that had been systematically planning to exploit my success for their own financial benefit. I walked into my current office that morning with a confidence I hadn't felt in years. My colleagues noticed immediately. "You look different today, Ashlyn," commented Janet from accounting as I passed her desk. "Like you just won the lottery or something." "Something like that," I replied, unable to suppress my smile. I closed my office door and called the number Rebecca Martinez had provided. She answered on the second ring with a warm, professional tone that immediately put me at ease. "Ms. Morrison, thank you for calling so quickly. I hope you're interested in learning more about this opportunity." "Very interested. When would you like to schedule an interview?" "Actually, I'm hoping we can expedite the process. We have an urgent need to fill this position, and your qualifications are exceptional. Would you be available for a video interview this afternoon, followed by an in-person meeting later this week? If things go well..." I calculated quickly. I could drive to Denver on Thursday, interview Friday morning, and be back by Saturday before my family realized I was seriously considering leaving town permanently. That timeline works perfectly. Excellent. I should mention that this position comes with full relocation assistance, including temporary housing while you search for permanent accommodations. We understand that moving for career opportunities requires significant logistical support. As Rebecca outlined the position details, I felt like I was listening to a description of the life I'd always wanted, but never believed was actually achievable. Challenging work with growth potential, financial independence that couldn't be threatened by family manipulation and geographic distance from people who saw my success as their personal resource. Ms. Morrison, can I ask what's motivating your interest in relocating your current position appears stable and progressive. I paused, considering how much honesty was appropriate in this conversation. I'm looking for a fresh start in an environment where I can focus entirely on professional growth without external pressures or complications. That makes perfect sense. Denver is an excellent city for young professionals who want to build careers without the distractions that can come with staying too close to family obligations. Her phrasing suggested she understood exactly what kind of external pressures I was referencing without requiring explicit details. I suspected I wasn't the first talented professional who'd sought opportunities in distant cities to escape family financial manipulation. The video interview that afternoon went better than I'd dared to hope. Rebecca and her team asked intelligent questions about my analytical experience, my approach to complex financial problems, and my ability to work independently on high-stakes projects. For 90 minutes, I discussed my professional capabilities without anyone questioning whether I'd be funding relatives' poor financial decisions. Ms. Morrison, I'm going to be direct with you, Rebecca said as we concluded. We're prepared to make an offer pending your in-person interview on Friday. Your experience with corporate restructuring is exactly what we need, and your references describe you as someone who maintains focus and integrity even under pressure. What kind of pressure? The kind that comes from family members or personal relationships trying to influence professional decisions. We've learned that the most effective analysts are those who can maintain clear boundaries between their personal and professional lives. I wondered if Sterling Financial Group specifically recruited people fleeing family financial manipulation, or if maintaining professional boundaries was such a rare quality that it had become a valuable hiring criterion. That evening, I researched Denver neighborhoods and apartment complexes, looking for places I could imagine rebuilding my life from scratch. The city looked beautiful in photographs, mountain views, outdoor recreation opportunities, a thriving professional community, and 900 miles of distance from people who felt entitled to my bank account. I also researched Colorado's financial privacy laws and discovered that the state had stronger protections against family financial exploitation than most jurisdictions. Identity theft was prosecuted aggressively, and victims had extensive legal recourse for recovering assets and preventing further abuse. As I browsed apartment listings and calculated moving expenses, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Can we talk privately? There are things about Tyler I need to understand, and you're the only person who's been honest with me." I called her immediately. Emma answered on the first ring, her voice strained with exhaustion and stress. "Ashlyn, I confronted Tyler about what you told me, about the unemployment, the debts, all of it." "How did he respond?" "He admitted to being unemployed, but he said it was only temporary and that he didn't want to worry me while I was planning the wedding. He swore he never applied for loans using your name and said you must be mistaken about the fraud." "Emma, I have copies of the applications with his signatures and my forged information." "I know. That's why I need to talk to you. Because after our conversation, I started paying attention to things I'd ignored before, and Tyler's been lying about much more than just employment." "What kind of lies?" "Financial lies, relationship lies about his past. I called his previous employer to ask about references for our apartment application, and they told me he was fired for stealing petty cash from the register. He told me he'd quit because the job wasn't challenging enough." My heart sank for Emma. She was discovering the same painful truths about Tyler that I'd been uncovering, that his entire personality was built on deception and entitlement. "Emma, I'm so sorry you're going through this. The worst part is that your parents knew. When I asked your mom about Tyler's employment history, she got defensive and said I should trust my fiancé instead of listening to family gossip. She knew Tyler had been fired and let me believe he was a reliable partner. They've been protecting Tyler from consequences his entire life. They probably see covering for his lies as normal family behavior." "Ashlyn, I need to ask you something, and please be completely honest. Do you think Tyler is capable of change? If he got a real job and started being truthful, could we build a healthy relationship?" I thought carefully before answering. Emma deserved honesty, but she also deserved hope if genuine change was possible. Emma, change requires accepting responsibility and making sustained effort over time. Tyler has been lying to you for months while planning to commit fraud against me. Those aren't mistakes or temporary lapses in judgment. They're patterns of behavior that suggest he doesn't respect the people who trust him. That's what I was afraid you'd say. Emma, you deserve a partner who sees your happiness as more important than his convenience. You deserve someone who tells you the truth even when it's difficult and who builds a life with you based on reality instead of fantasy. I know, I just wish I'd seen it sooner. You saw it as soon as you had accurate information. That's not your fault, that's Tyler's fault for creating a relationship built on lies. After we hung up, I looked around my childhood bedroom with new appreciation for the clean slate waiting for me in Denver. In 72 hours, I would interview for a position that could change my entire life trajectory. And for the first time since I'd overheard that devastating conversation about making me pay for everything, I felt genuinely excited about the future instead of just angry about the past. Tuesday evening, Mom announced that she was cooking a special family dinner for Thursday night to celebrate everyone being together and discuss some exciting family plans. Her tone carried the forced cheerfulness that always preceded uncomfortable conversations, and I immediately suspected this dinner was designed to corner me into financial commitments. I'd planned to drive to Denver Thursday morning for my Friday interview, but Mom's insistence that Thursday was the only night everyone could gather made it clear this timing wasn't coincidental. Tyler probably needed to finalize his fraudulent loan applications and was running out of time to manipulate my consent. "What kind of family plans are we discussing?" I asked as innocently as possible. "Oh, just some wonderful opportunities for all of us to work together towards shared goals." Mom replied with the vague enthusiasm she used when she wanted to avoid providing actual information. "Your father has some very interesting ideas about family financial planning that he's excited to share with everyone." I agreed to attend the dinner while secretly rearranging my interview schedule. Rebecca Martinez was understanding when I explained that urgent family matters required me to travel Friday afternoon instead of Thursday morning, and she accommodated a Friday afternoon interview followed by a weekend in Denver to explore the city. Thursday arrived with an atmosphere of artificial celebration that felt more like a business meeting disguised as family time. Mom had prepared Tyler's favorite meal, prime rib, with garlic mashed potatoes and roasted vegetables, despite the expense being impractical for people claiming financial hardship. The dining room table was set with our good china and crystal glasses that only appeared during holidays or when guests needed to be impressed. Tyler arrived with Emma, who looked uncomfortable and avoided eye contact with me. Dad emerged from his office carrying a leather portfolio and wearing the confident expression he used when presenting investment strategies to his insurance clients. Before we eat, Dad announced, "I want to share some exciting financial planning concepts that could benefit our entire family for generations to come." He opened his portfolio and spread several charts and graphs across the table, each one labeled with phrases like family wealth building strategy and multi-generational investment approach. The presentation looked professional and legitimate, which made it even more insidious. As you all know, families that build wealth together stay together. The most successful family financial strategies involve pooling resources and expertise to maximize everyone's potential. Dad's voice carried the persuasive tone he'd perfected through decades of selling insurance policies to reluctant customers. The first chart showed projected returns on family investment pools, where multiple family members contributed different amounts based on their income capacity. My projected contribution was listed as 78% of the total family investment fund. "Dad, where did you get these numbers for my projected contributions?" "From careful analysis of your income and expenses, sweetheart. We know approximately what you earn and what your living costs are. So calculating your available investment capacity was simple mathematics." "You've been calculating my available investment capacity without my knowledge or consent." Family financial planning requires transparency and cooperation from everyone involved. We're not strangers, Ashlyn. We're family members who want to help each other succeed. Tyler leaned forward eagerly. The beautiful thing about this approach is that everyone benefits according to their contributions and their needs. Someone who's starting a family has different financial requirements than someone who's single and established in their career. I looked around the table, noting the expectant faces watching my reaction to their elaborate financial manipulation presentation. They'd spent considerable time and effort creating charts that made their exploitation of my income look like sophisticated investment planning. "This is very interesting," I said carefully. "Can you walk me through exactly how the contribution and distribution system would work?" Dad flipped to a detailed breakdown showing monthly contribution amounts from each family member, with my contributions funding the majority of Tyler's wedding expenses, house down payment, and debt consolidation. The distribution schedule showed Tyler receiving immediate large amounts while my benefits were projected years into the future, with vague descriptions like family support during career transitions and elder care cost sharing. As you can see, Ashlyn, this isn't just about helping Tyler and Emma get started in their marriage. This is about creating a family financial foundation that benefits everyone over time. What happens if I decide not to participate in this family financial foundation? The question created an uncomfortable silence. Mom and Dad exchanged glances before Dad cleared his throat. "Well, naturally, we hope you'll see the value in family cooperation. But we understand that some people need time to adjust to thinking about money as a family resource rather than an individual asset." Tyler's expression tightened. "It would be disappointing if family loyalty wasn't strong enough to overcome personal selfishness, but I guess everyone has to make their own choices about what kind of family member they want to be." "Tyler, can you clarify what you mean by family loyalty requiring financial contributions?" "I mean that people who have been blessed with success have a responsibility to share those blessings with family members who haven't been as fortunate. It's not fair for one person to hoard money while watching relatives struggle." "Tyler, you're not struggling because of misfortune. You're struggling because you've been unemployed for 6 months, lied to your fiancé about your income, and attempted to commit fraud using my identity instead of getting a job." Tyler's face flushed red. "That's a completely unfair characterization of a temporary employment transition. Emma, would you say Tyler's unemployment and lies about his income constitute a temporary employment transition?" Emma stared at her plate, her discomfort visible to everyone at the table. "I'd rather not discuss Tyler's employment situation during family dinner." Mom intervened quickly. "Girls, let's focus on the positive opportunities instead of dwelling on temporary challenges. Tyler's situation will improve, and this family financial plan will help everyone weather difficult periods while building long-term wealth." "Mom, this isn't a family financial plan. This is a systematic transfer of my income to fund Tyler's lifestyle, while he avoids taking responsibility for his own financial decisions." Dad's patience finally snapped. "Ashlyn, your attitude is extremely disappointing. We raised you to understand family obligations and mutual support. The selfishness and ingratitude is not what we expected from our daughter." "What did you expect exactly?" "We expected you to recognize that your success creates opportunities to help your family thrive. We expected you to understand that individual achievement means nothing without family solidarity. Dad, did you expect me to fund Tyler's entire adult life while he lies to his fiancée and commits fraud against me? Tyler made some mistakes, but family means forgiving mistakes and helping each other move forward constructively." I looked around the table at faces that had become strangers' faces, people whose love for me was entirely conditional on my willingness to be financially exploited. The elaborate dinner, the professional charts, the coordinated manipulation, all of it designed to pressure me into funding a lifestyle Tyler hadn't earned while believing I was investing in family relationships. "I need to tell you all something," I said quietly. "Tomorrow I'm interviewing for a position in Denver that would require immediate relocation." The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler's face went pale. Mom's hands began trembling, and Dad's confident expression crumbled into panic. "You're planning to abandon your family for a job?" Mom whispered. "I'm planning to build a life where my success isn't seen as everyone else's financial resource." "Ashlyn, you can't make major life decisions based on temporary family disagreements," Dad said desperately. "Dad, this isn't a temporary disagreement about money. This is a fundamental difference in values about autonomy, honesty, and what family relationships should be based on." Tyler stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Fine. If you want to destroy our family over money, that's your choice. But don't expect to maintain relationships with people you've abandoned when it was convenient." "Tyler, I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm protecting myself from people who feel entitled to exploit me." As I watched my family grapple with the possibility that their financial manipulation target was about to become geographically inaccessible, I felt a profound sense of clarity about my decision to pursue the Denver opportunity. They weren't upset about losing me as a daughter and sister. They were upset about losing access to my bank account. Friday morning brought a series of phone calls that made me realize my parents had been implementing a comprehensive campaign to pressure me through extended family members. The calls began at 7:30 a.m. with my Aunt Patricia, Mom's older sister, who lived in Phoenix and hadn't spoken to me in over a year. "Ashlyn, honey, your mother called me last night in tears about some kind of family crisis. She said you're planning to move across the country and abandon Tyler during the most important time of his life." I sat in my car outside a coffee shop near Denver's financial district, having driven through the night to make my afternoon interview. The mountain views were spectacular, but Aunt Patricia's accusatory tone brought the toxicity of home right back into focus. "Aunt Patricia, what exactly did Mom tell you about the situation?" She said Tyler and Emma are planning their wedding and trying to buy their first house, and you've decided to be selfish and unsupportive instead of helping family like you're supposed to. She said you've gotten too big for your britches since getting that fancy job, and you've forgotten how much your family sacrificed for your education. The manipulation was so smooth and comprehensive that I almost admired its effectiveness. Mom had contacted extended family members with a carefully crafted narrative that positioned Tyler as the struggling victim and me as the ungrateful villain, ensuring that family pressure would come from multiple directions simultaneously. Aunt Patricia, did Mom mention that Tyler has been unemployed for 6 months and has been lying to Emma about his income? She said he was going through a career transition, which is normal for young people trying to find their path. That's exactly when family support matters most. Did she mention that Tyler applied for loans using my personal information without my consent? There was a pause. "What do you mean?" "I mean identity theft and fraud. Tyler has been forging my signature on loan applications and using my credit information to borrow money that I would be legally responsible for paying back." "Honey, that doesn't sound right. Tyler wouldn't do something like that to his own sister." "Aunt Patricia, I have copies of the fraudulent applications. I've filed police reports. This isn't a misunderstanding or a family disagreement. This is criminal behavior." Another pause, longer this time. "Ashlyn, are you sure you're not overreacting? Sometimes family financial arrangements can seem complicated from the outside, but they're just informal agreements that don't require formal paperwork." I realized that my parents had been preparing extended family members for exactly this conversation, providing alternative explanations for any accusations I might make about Tyler's behavior. They'd positioned criminal fraud as normal family financial cooperation, making me look paranoid and vindictive for protecting myself. "Aunt Patricia, there's nothing informal about applying for $35,000 loans with someone else's credit information. There's nothing informal about signing someone else's name on legal documents. These are federal crimes. I think you need to talk to your parents more calmly and try to work this out without involving lawyers and police. Family problems should be solved within the family." The call ended with Aunt Patricia promising to pray for family reconciliation, but I suspected she'd immediately call my parents to report our conversation. Within 20 minutes, my phone was ringing again. Uncle Robert, Dad's brother from Minneapolis. Ashlyn, your father is heartbroken about this conflict you're creating with Tyler. Cousin Jennifer from Dallas. I can't believe you're being so harsh with Tyler when he's just trying to start his life with Emma. Grandma Morrison from Tampa. Sweetheart, family forgiveness is more important than money. You don't want to let financial disagreements destroy relationships you can never repair. Each conversation followed the same pattern. My parents had contacted family members with a version of events that portrayed Tyler as a struggling young man deserving support, and me as a successful but selfish daughter who was abandoning family obligations for personal gain. None of them had been told about the unemployment, the lies to Emma, or the fraud. The most devastating call came from my maternal grandmother, Nana, who had helped pay for my college textbooks when money was tight and had always been my strongest supporter in the family. Ashlyn, honey, I'm so confused about what's happening with you and Tyler. Your mother said you're refusing to help with his wedding and that you've threatened to take legal action against him for trying to borrow money. Nana, what else did Mom tell you? She said you've gotten too focused on your career and your savings account, and you've lost sight of family values. She said Tyler just needs some temporary financial help to get established, and you're treating him like a stranger instead of your baby brother. My heart broke as I realized my parents had manipulated even Nana, who was 84 years old and had always trusted their version of family events. Nana Tyler stole my personal information and applied for loans without my permission. He's been lying to his fiancée about having a job. This isn't about me being selfish. This is about Tyler committing crimes. Oh, honey, that can't be right. Tyler's always been such a sweet boy. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding about some paperwork. Nana, did Mom ask you for any money recently? Well, she mentioned that Tyler and Emma were looking at a beautiful house, and she asked if I might consider helping with the down payment since you weren't able to contribute. She said it would mean so much to Tyler to know his grandmother believed in his future. The blood drained from my face. Nana, how much money did Mom ask you for? $15,000. It's most of my savings, but she said it was an investment in Tyler's future, and you'd probably help me replenish my account once you realized how important this was to the family. I pulled over to the side of the road, my hands shaking with rage. My parents weren't just stealing from me, they were manipulating my elderly grandmother into risking her financial security for Tyler's lies with the expectation that I would eventually cover the loss. Nana, please don't give Mom or Tyler any money. Please promise me you won't make any financial decisions until I can come visit you and explain what's really happening. Honey, you're scaring me. Are you saying your mother would lie to me about something so important? Nana, I'm saying Tyler has been lying to everyone for months, and Mom and Dad have been covering for him while trying to manipulate money from family members. Your savings need to stay in your account where they're safe. The call ended with Nana promising to wait before making any financial decisions, but I could hear the confusion and hurt in her voice. My parents had turned my beloved grandmother into another victim of their manipulation scheme. As I sat in my rental car overlooking the Denver skyline, I realized that my family's financial manipulation extended far beyond just exploiting my income. They'd been systematically targeting every family member with assets, creating a web of lies and emotional manipulation designed to fund Tyler's lifestyle while protecting themselves from direct financial responsibility. The most insidious part was how they'd positioned my self-protection as family betrayal, ensuring that every boundary I established would be seen as evidence of my selfishness rather than their exploitation. I called Marcus immediately. We need to add elder financial abuse to our police report. They're targeting my grandmother for her savings while lying about Tyler's situation. Ashlyn, elder financial abuse carries serious federal penalties. If we can document that they're manipulating an elderly family member into financial decisions based on false information, this becomes a much bigger case. Marcus. I think they've been planning this manipulation campaign for months. Every family member they've contacted has been given the same narrative positioning me as the villain and Tyler as the victim. This isn't spontaneous family pressure. This is orchestrated emotional manipulation designed to isolate me from support systems. That sounds like organized fraud conspiracy. We need to document every conversation you've had with family members and any evidence of coordinated messaging. As I prepared for my interview that afternoon, I felt a profound sense of relief that I was 900 miles away from the family members who had turned my success into everyone else's financial opportunity. Denver wasn't just offering me a new job, it was offering me protection from people who saw my love for them as a weakness to be exploited. Saturday morning in Denver, I made a decision that felt both necessary and heartbreaking. Using my phone's recording app, I called my parents' house while sitting in a quiet corner of my hotel lobby, knowing that Tyler would likely be there discussing their next manipulation tactics, now that extended family pressure hadn't achieved their desired results. Mom answered on the third ring. "Ashlyn, we've been hoping you'd call. Several family members have mentioned they spoke with you and there seems to be some confusion about Tyler's situation. I'm calling because I want to understand exactly what you've told family members about me and Tyler. We've simply shared our concerns about family unity and the importance of supporting each other during challenging times. People are worried about you, honey. They're concerned that work stress might be affecting your judgment about family relationships." Dad's voice joined the conversation as he picked up the extension. "Ashlyn, we've been talking with Tyler about ways to resolve this conflict constructively. He's willing to sit down and discuss any concerns you have about his financial planning." "What kind of financial planning has Tyler been doing?" Tyler's voice came through clearly as he apparently entered the room. "I've been exploring options for building financial stability with Emma. Standard stuff like consolidating debts and establishing credit for major purchases. Nothing unusual or inappropriate. Tyler, can you be more specific about what kind of debt consolidation and credit establishment you've been working on?" "Just normal financial planning that any engaged couple would do. Looking at loan options, researching mortgage pre-approval processes, talking to family about potential support during the transition to married life." I felt sick listening to Tyler describe fraud and identity theft as normal financial planning, while my parents murmured agreement in the background. "Tyler, when you say you've been looking at loan options, what exactly does that mean?" "It means I've been researching what's available and what we might qualify for. I've talked to several lenders about different scenarios for funding wedding expenses and home purchases." "Have you submitted any formal applications to these lenders?" There was a pause before Tyler answered. "I've explored various options to understand what might be possible. That's just responsible planning." Dad interjected smoothly. "The important thing is that Tyler is taking initiative to plan for his future instead of just expecting family handouts. We're proud that he's approaching this maturely." "Dad, are you aware that Tyler has been unemployed for 6 months?" "Tyler is in transition between career opportunities. That's different from being unemployed in the traditional sense. He's been building his photography business and developing professional relationships." "Has Tyler shown you any income from his photography business in the past 6 months?" Mom jumped in defensively. "Ashlyn, it's not appropriate for parents to demand financial documentation from their adult children. We trust Tyler to manage his business affairs honestly. But it is appropriate for you to demand access to my financial information for family planning purposes. You're our daughter, and we're concerned about your financial decisions affecting the whole family. That's different from micromanaging Tyler's entrepreneurial efforts." Tyler laughed and the sound made my skin crawl. "Ashlyn always wants to see bank statements and pays stubs like she's running a credit check on family members. Some people trust family and some people treat family like business transactions." "Tyler, do you think forging someone's signature on loan applications constitutes treating family like business transactions?" "I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never forged anyone's signature on anything." Dad's voice became stern. "Ashlyn, these accusations are getting completely out of hand. Tyler has explained that he's been researching financial options, not committing fraud. Your interpretation of normal financial planning as criminal behavior is concerning. Dad, I have copies of loan applications with my name and financial information that I never provided, and signatures that I never made. Tyler's response was immediate and practiced. If there are documents with your information, it's probably because I used you as a reference for character and employment verification. Lenders often require family references for loan applications. That's completely normal and legal. Tyler character references don't include social security numbers and bank account information. They do if the reference person agrees to be a co-signer or guarantor, which you did when we discussed family financial planning months ago. I felt dizzy listening to Tyler create an entirely fictional version of conversations that had never happened. Tyler, when specifically did we discuss me becoming a co-signer for your loans? During Christmas, when we talked about family members helping each other with major life transitions, you said you understood the importance of family financial support. Tyler, we never had that conversation. Dad's voice carried a tone of disappointment and authority. Ashlyn, it's very troubling that you're claiming conversations didn't happen when Tyler clearly remembers them. This suggests that your memory of family interactions may be compromised by work stress or other factors. I realized they were establishing a narrative where any evidence of their manipulation would be dismissed as my faulty memory or misinterpretation of normal family conversations. They'd constructed an alternative reality where Tyler's fraud was family cooperation and my self-protection was mental instability. What's really concerning, Mom added sadly, is that Ashlyn seems to believe her own family members are lying to her. That level of distrust suggests she might benefit from professional counseling to work through whatever underlying issues are affecting her relationships. Tyler's voice took on a tone of fake concern. I love my sister, but I'm worried about her. She's become paranoid and suspicious about normal family interactions. Maybe the pressure of her job is affecting her ability to think clearly about personal relationships. Maybe we should consider intervention-style family counseling, Dad suggested. Sometimes people need professional help to recognize when their thinking patterns have become distorted. As I listened to my family systematically construct a version of reality where I was mentally unstable and Tyler was an innocent victim of my delusions, I felt the last vestiges of familial love transform into something harder and more protective. They weren't just stealing my money. They weren't just committing fraud. They were attempting to gaslight me into questioning my own perception of reality, positioning themselves as concerned family members trying to help a disturbed relative who was imagining criminal behavior that didn't exist. I need to go, I said quietly. Honey, please consider family counseling, Mom said with fake maternal concern. We love you and we want to help you work through whatever is causing these trust issues and false accusations. Tyler is willing to meet with a counselor to address any concerns you have about his financial planning, Dad added. He wants to restore family harmony just as much as we do. Tyler's final comment was delivered with perfect innocence. Ashlyn, I hope you know that no matter how confused you are right now, I still love you, and I'm still hoping we can work things out. Family forgiveness is more important than family misunderstandings. After I hung up, I sat in the hotel lobby for 20 minutes listening to the recording and marveling at the sophistication of their manipulation tactics. They'd smoothly deflected every specific accusation, reframed criminal behavior as normal family planning, and positioned my accurate understanding of their fraud as evidence of mental health problems requiring professional intervention. But they'd also provided me with recorded evidence of their coordinated deception, their dismissal of documented fraud, and their attempts to manipulate my perception of reality. Marcus was going to find this recording very interesting when I returned to file additional charges for conspiracy and elder abuse. Sunday morning in Denver, I woke up with crystal clear certainty about my future. The interview with Sterling Financial Group had exceeded every expectation. Rebecca Martinez and her team were exactly the kind of colleagues I'd always hoped to work with. and the position offered challenges that would utilize every skill I'd developed while providing room for growth I'd never imagined possible. More importantly, the city itself felt like home in a way that surprised me. Walking through downtown Saturday evening, I'd experienced something I hadn't felt in years, the possibility of building a life based on my own choices rather than other people's expectations. Nobody here knew about my family's financial manipulation. Nobody here felt entitled to my success or saw my achievements as their personal opportunities. Rebecca called at 10 a.m. with news I'd been hoping to hear. "Ashlyn, we'd like to extend a formal offer for the senior financial analyst position. Are you available to discuss terms?" The offer was extraordinary. Base salary of $98,000, $20,000 signing bonus, full relocation assistance, including temporary housing and moving expenses, comprehensive benefits, package and performance bonuses that could add another $15,000 to $20,000 annually. "Rebecca, I accept your offer." "Excellent. How quickly can you relocate? We're hoping to have you start within 3 weeks if possible." I calculated the logistics of extracting myself from my current life completely. "I can be here in 2 weeks." "Perfect. I'll have our HR team coordinate the relocation services and temporary housing arrangements. Ashlyn, I want you to know how excited we are to have you join our team. Your interview responses and analytical approach impressed everyone you met with." As we discussed start dates and relocation logistics, I felt like I was planning a rescue mission rather than a career transition. Every detail arranged was another step away from people who saw my financial success as their personal resource. After finalizing the offer details, I called Marcus to discuss the legal timeline for my fraud case against Tyler. "Marcus, I need to know if I can relocate to Colorado while the identity theft charges are pending." "Absolutely. In fact, geographic distance from the perpetrators might be beneficial if they escalate their harassment tactics. Colorado has excellent victim protection laws, and Denver has resources specifically for people fleeing family financial abuse." Family financial abuse is a recognized category. Unfortunately, yes, adult children exploiting elderly parents gets more attention, but financial manipulation by parents and siblings against successful family members is increasingly common. There are support groups and legal advocacy organizations specifically for people in your situation. The idea that my experience was common enough to warrant specialized support services was both comforting and depressing. How many other people had discovered that their families saw their achievements as everyone else's financial opportunity? "Marcus, what happens to the criminal case if I move to Denver?" "The charges were filed in your current jurisdiction, so the legal proceedings will continue here regardless of your location. You'll need to return for court dates and depositions, but your residence won't affect the prosecution of Tyler's fraud charges." That afternoon, I began the systematic process of relocating my entire life. I researched apartments in Denver neighborhoods near Sterling Financial, focusing on places with security features and no forwarding address requirements. I contacted utility companies, updated my voter registration, and began the administrative tasks of establishing residency in a new state. The most emotionally difficult task was drafting my resignation letter. My current employer had been supportive and professional, and leaving felt like abandoning colleagues who'd invested in my development. But staying meant remaining accessible to family members who felt entitled to monitor and control my financial decisions. I scheduled a Monday morning meeting with my current supervisor, David, to discuss my resignation timeline. David had been a mentor for 3 years, and I owed him an honest explanation of my departure. "David, I've accepted a position in Denver that I'll be starting in 2 weeks." His expression shifted from surprise to concern. "Ashlyn, this seems very sudden. Is everything all right?" "You've seemed stressed lately, but I thought it was just the quarterly reports deadline." "I've been dealing with some serious family issues that require me to relocate for personal safety and financial security." David closed his office door and sat back down. "Are you talking about domestic violence or stalking?" "Financial exploitation and identity theft by family members. It's escalated to the point where staying in the same geographic area isn't safe for my financial future." Jesus, Ashlyn, I'm so sorry. Is there anything the company can do to help legal resources security consultations? Anything? Thank you for asking, but I've already filed police reports and am working with financial crimes investigators. The best thing for me is a fresh start in a location where the perpetrators can't access my personal information or workplace. David leaned forward, his expression serious. Ashlyn, you've been one of our most valuable analysts for 3 years. Losing you is a significant loss for the team. But if you need to relocate for safety reasons, I want to make sure you have the best possible references and support. David, would you be willing to serve as a professional reference who can speak to my analytical skills and work ethic without providing any personal information about my current location or new employer? Of course. And Ashlyn, if you ever need anything professional, references, career advice, or just someone who knew you before this family crisis, please don't hesitate to contact me. The kindness and professionalism of David's response highlighted how differently workplace relationships functioned compared to family relationships. David saw my success as something that benefited our team and company, not as something he was entitled to exploit for personal gain. That evening, I called Emma to let her know about my relocation plans. She answered immediately, and I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. Ashlyn, I'm so glad you called. I've been trying to process everything that's happened, and I keep coming back to questions about what I should do about my engagement to Tyler. Emma, what does your gut tell you about building a life with someone who's been lying to you for months? My gut tells me to run as far away as possible. But my heart keeps hoping that maybe Tyler can change if he faces real consequences for his behavior. Emma, I'm moving to Denver in 2 weeks for a new job. I wanted you to know because I care about you, and I want you to understand that you're not alone in recognizing Tyler's deception. You're moving because of what Tyler did. I'm moving because I've realized that my family sees my success as their financial resource, and I need to build a life where my achievements belong to me. Tyler's fraud was just the catalyst that helped me see patterns that have existed for years. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Ashlyn, can I ask you something? Do you think I'm naive for having believed Tyler's lies for so long? Emma, you believed someone you loved who was deliberately deceiving you. That's not naive, that's what trust looks like in healthy relationships. Tyler exploited your trust and your love, which says something about his character, not yours. I keep thinking I should have seen the signs earlier. Emma, the signs were carefully hidden by someone who's had years of practice lying to people who love him. My parents have been covering for Tyler's deceptions since he was a teenager, so he's learned to be very convincing when he wants to avoid consequences. What should I do about the wedding? We've sent save-the-date cards, people have made travel plans, and I don't know how to explain to everyone that my fiancé has been unemployed and lying about everything. Emma, you tell them the truth. You explain that you discovered your partner was not the person he represented himself to be, and you made the difficult but necessary decision to end the engagement before making legal and financial commitments to someone who wasn't honest with you. Do you think that's the right decision? I think the right decision is whatever protects your emotional and financial future, but I can tell you that staying with someone who's proven they'll lie to you about fundamental aspects of their life is likely to result in more lies, more manipulation, and more situations where you question your own judgment. After we hung up, I felt a profound sadness for Emma, who was facing the same painful realization I'd experienced, that people we love and trust are capable of sustained, calculated deception when it serves their interests. But I also felt hope for both of us. Emma was asking the right questions and considering the difficult but necessary choice to prioritize her own well-being over Tyler's convenience. And I was 12 days away from starting a life where my success would be celebrated rather than exploited. Denver represented more than just geographic distance from financial manipulation. It represented the possibility of building relationships based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. professional growth based on merit rather than family connections, and personal happiness based on authentic choices rather than guilt and obligation. For the first time in years, I was excited about my future, instead of just protecting myself from my past. Monday evening, Tyler appeared at my apartment without warning or invitation, arriving as I was packing boxes for my impending move to Denver. When I opened the door, his expression was a mixture of desperation and rage that I'd never seen before, and his usual confident demeanor had been replaced by something that made me immediately step back and consider calling for help. "We need to talk, Ashlyn, right now." "Tyler, you can't just show up at my apartment uninvited. If you want to have a conversation, you can call and schedule a time to meet in a public place. This can't wait, and it can't be public." He pushed past me into my living room, scanning the packed boxes with obvious panic. "You're really doing this? You're really planning to abandon your entire family for some job in Colorado?" "I'm relocating for career advancement and personal autonomy. How I choose to live my life isn't your business or your decision." Tyler turned to face me directly, and his eyes had a wild quality that made me grateful my phone was within easy reach. "Ashlyn, I know you've been talking to people about me. I know you've been spreading lies to Emma and probably to lawyers and police. That stops right now." "Tyler, I haven't spread any lies. I've shared factual information about your unemployment, your deception, and your fraud with people who deserve to know the truth. You've destroyed my relationship with Emma. She broke up with me yesterday because of the poisonous things you put in her head about me." I felt a surge of relief for Emma, who had apparently found the courage to prioritize her own well-being over Tyler's convenience. "Tyler, Emma broke up with you because she discovered that you'd been lying to her about fundamental aspects of your life for months. I didn't destroy your relationship, you did when you decided to build it on deception. You interfered with something that wasn't your business. Emma and I could have worked through our problems if you hadn't filled her head with paranoid theories about fraud and criminal behavior." Tyler using someone else's personal information to apply for loans without their consent isn't a paranoid theory. It's identity theft, which is a federal crime. Tyler pulled out his phone and began scrolling through what appeared to be screenshots and documents. "Here's what's going to happen, Ashlyn. You're going to stop talking to lawyers, stop talking to police, and stop spreading rumors about me to family members. And you're going to cancel this ridiculous move to Colorado." "Or what?" "Or I share some very interesting information I've discovered about your plans to abandon the family that supported your education and career development." He held up his phone, showing what appeared to be emails and documents. "I've been monitoring your email and social media accounts, and I've found some fascinating details about how you've been planning this betrayal for months." My blood ran cold. Tyler accessing someone else's email accounts without permission is also a federal crime. Not when it's family members sharing information for legitimate family planning purposes. I have passwords and account access that you voluntarily provided during family technology troubleshooting sessions. I realized Tyler was referencing times when I'd asked for help with computer problems and had given him temporary access to my accounts. He'd apparently been using that access to monitor my communications without my knowledge. "What do you think you found, Tyler?" "Evidence that you've been planning to leave town to avoid your family financial responsibilities. Evidence that you've been lying to our parents about your income and assets. Evidence that you've been manipulating family members against me while pretending to be the victim of financial abuse." Tyler began reading from his phone. Email to Sterling Financial Group discussing relocation timeline and salary negotiations. Text messages with your financial advisor about hiding assets from family members. Internet searches for apartment rentals in Denver and legal advice about family financial obligations. Tyler, none of those communications contain anything illegal or inappropriate. I have every right to pursue job opportunities, relocate for career advancement, and protect my assets from unauthorized access. But they do show that you've been lying to our parents about your intentions and your financial situation. They show that you've been manipulating the narrative to make yourself look like a victim while planning to abandon family members who need your support. Tyler's confidence was returning as he outlined his blackmail strategy. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Rebecca Martinez and decline the Denver position. You're going to withdraw your police complaints about me. You're going to apologize to our parents for the stress and confusion you've caused. And you're going to commit to the family financial planning strategies we discussed. And if I don't, then I share all of this information with our extended family, your current employer, your new potential employer, and anyone else who might be interested in knowing how you've been manipulating family members and lying about financial abuse to cover your own selfish decisions. I stared at Tyler, marveling at his ability to reframe my self-protection as family betrayal while positioning his criminal behavior as legitimate family planning. Tyler, do you understand that you're currently committing extortion, which is also a federal crime? I'm trying to save our family from the damage you're causing with your paranoid accusations and selfish decisions. Tyler, you've now committed identity theft fraud, unauthorized access to electronic communications, and extortion. You're facing multiple felony charges that could result in years in federal prison. Only if you continue pursuing vindictive legal action against your own brother instead of working things out within the family like a normal person. I pulled out my phone and began recording our conversation. Tyler, I want you to repeat your threats about sharing my private communications unless I comply with your demands. Tyler's expression shifted to panic as he realized I was documenting his extortion attempt. Turn off that phone, Ashlyn. Tyler, you just threatened to destroy my professional relationships unless I abandon my career plans and submit to your financial manipulation. You've admitted to accessing my private email and social media accounts without authorization. You've demanded that I withdraw legitimate criminal complaints about your fraud. This is textbook extortion. You're twisting everything I said. I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone. Tyler, the solution that works for everyone is you getting a job telling the truth to people who trust you and facing legal consequences for your criminal behavior. Tyler lunged toward me, trying to grab my phone. I stepped back quickly, maintaining distance while keeping the recording active. Tyler, you need to leave my apartment immediately. Any further contact needs to go through my attorney. Ashlyn, you're making a huge mistake. You think you can just walk away from your family and start over like we don't exist, but it doesn't work that way. We'll find ways to reach you in Colorado. We'll make sure everyone you work with knows exactly what kind of person abandons their family for money. Tyler, you just threatened to harass me across state lines, which adds federal stalking charges to your growing list of crimes. As Tyler stormed out of my apartment, slamming the door behind him, I immediately called Marcus to report the extortion attempt and discuss additional legal protections. Ashlyn, we need to file for a restraining order immediately. Tyler has escalated from fraud to direct threats, and his access to your electronic communications means he has tools for ongoing harassment. Marcus, he's also threatened to contact my new employer with false information to sabotage my career opportunities. That's defamation and interference with business relationships. We're adding those charges to the complaint along with the extortion and unauthorized access to electronic communications. As I continued packing that evening, I felt a strange mixture of fear and empowerment. Tyler's desperation confirmed that my decision to relocate was the right choice. He was escalating his manipulation tactics because he realized his victim was escaping his control. But his threats also revealed the true scope of his entitlement. Tyler didn't just feel entitled to my money, he felt entitled to control my life choices, my career decisions, and my personal relationships. He saw my independence as a personal attack that justified criminal behavior and harassment. In 9 days, I would be living in Denver, 900 miles away from someone who felt justified in committing multiple felonies to maintain access to my financial resources. Tyler had just provided recorded evidence that would ensure he faced serious legal consequences for his crimes. Tuesday evening, I decided it was time to stop being reactive and start being strategic. Instead of waiting for my family to ambush me with their next manipulation tactic, I would control the timing and terms of our final confrontation. I called my parents and requested a family meeting for Wednesday night, telling them I had important information to share about my future plans and Tyler's situation. Mom's eagerness to schedule the meeting confirmed that they'd been planning their own intervention. "Oh, honey, we're so glad you want to talk things through as a family. Your father and I have been hoping you'd realize that family unity is more important than temporary misunderstandings. I have some things to share that I think will clarify the situation for everyone involved." Tyler will be so relieved. He's been heartbroken about the conflict between you two, and he's eager to explain any confusion about his financial planning. I arrived at my parents' house Wednesday evening carrying a folder containing printed copies of every fraudulent document, every unauthorized credit inquiry, every piece of evidence that revealed the true scope of Tyler's criminal behavior. I also brought a small digital recorder and my phone, both fully charged and ready to capture whatever manipulation tactics they deployed. The living room was arranged like a corporate boardroom with Dad sitting behind his desk and legal pads arranged for note-taking. Tyler sat in the corner chair, his posture defensive and his expression wary. Mom bustled around, offering coffee and snacks, her artificial cheerfulness barely masking the tension that filled the room. "Before we begin," I announced, "I want everyone to understand that this conversation is being recorded for legal documentation purposes." Dad's confident expression faltered. "Ashlyn, that's hardly necessary for a family discussion." "Dad, this isn't a family discussion. This is a legal documentation session where I'm going to present evidence of criminal behavior and offer Tyler one final opportunity to resolve this situation without spending years in federal prison." Tyler shifted uncomfortably. "Ashlyn, you're being overly dramatic about normal family financial conversations." I opened my folder and spread the documents across Dad's desk with systematic precision. "Tyler, here are copies of loan applications bearing your signature and my forged signature, submitted to 3 different lending institutions without my knowledge or consent." Dad leaned forward to examine the documents, his face growing pale as he read the details. "Tyler, what are these?" "Dad, those are just preliminary applications I submitted to research our borrowing options. Ashlyn knew I was exploring financial possibilities for the wedding and house purchase." I placed the next set of documents on the desk. "Here are records showing unauthorized access to my credit report from multiple institutions over a 2-month period. Here are copies of business account applications using my personal information to establish Morrison Photography Services, with Tyler as the authorized signer." Mom's coffee cup rattled against its saucer as she set it down. "Tyler, honey, you didn't tell us about business account applications." "Mom, I was trying to establish proper business banking to formalize my photography income. Using family references for account setup is completely normal." I pulled out the employment verification request from my HR department. "Here's documentation that Tyler's loan applications triggered employment verification requests to my workplace. My employer nearly released confidential salary information to lending institutions for loans I never applied for." Dad's expression was shifting from confusion to alarm as the scope of Tyler's deception became clear. "Son, did you really use your sister's employment information without her permission?" "Dad, I used publicly available information for legitimate financial planning purposes. Ashlyn is exaggerating the significance of standard loan application procedures." I placed the final set of documents on the desk screenshots of Tyler's credit report, showing 6 months of unemployment records of his firing for theft from his previous employer and evidence of significant credit card debt he'd been hiding from everyone. Here's Tyler's actual employment and financial situation. He was fired from his last job for stealing money from the register. He's been unemployed for 6 months, not building his photography business. He has $17,000 in credit card debt and no legitimate income source. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom stared at the documents with growing horror while Dad's face flushed red with embarrassment and anger. "Tyler," Dad said quietly, "is this information accurate?" Tyler's confident facade finally crumbled completely. "Dad, the employment situation has been challenging, but I've been working towards solutions. The photography business is growing slowly, and I needed some bridge financing to get established properly. Tyler, bridge financing doesn't require forging your sister's signature on loan applications. Mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. I pulled out my phone and played portions of Tyler's extortion attempt from the night before, where he'd admitted to accessing my email accounts and threatened to sabotage my career opportunities. Here's Tyler threatening to destroy my professional relationships unless I submit to his financial demands and cancel my relocation to Colorado. Dad listened to his son's recorded threats with an expression of complete shock. Tyler, did you really threaten your sister's career over this financial conflict? Dad, I was trying to prevent Ashlyn from destroying our family over money. She's planning to abandon all of us for a job in another state, and I was trying to make her understand the consequences of that decision. Tyler, the consequences of my career decisions are my responsibility to consider, not yours to control through criminal threats. I looked around the room at my family members, watching them grapple with evidence that their golden child had been systematically committing federal crimes while lying to everyone who trusted him. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with Detective Sarah Chen from the Financial Crimes Division to file formal charges for identity theft fraud, forgery, extortion, and elder financial abuse related to Tyler's attempts to manipulate Nana's savings. Tyler shot to his feet. Ashlyn, you can't report your own brother to the police over family financial disagreements. Tyler, these aren't family financial disagreements. These are serious crimes that could have destroyed my credit, my career, and my financial future. You've also put Nana's retirement security at risk with your lies about needing money for house purchases. Mom began crying softly. How did this happen? How did our family get to the point where we're talking about police and criminal charges? Mom, this happened because Tyler learned that he could avoid consequences for his choices by manipulating family members who love him. You and Dad have been covering for his lies and failures for years, teaching him that family loyalty means protecting him from the results of his own behavior. Dad cleared his throat, his voice heavy with defeat. Ashlyn, is there any way to resolve this without involving law enforcement? Tyler is still our son, and criminal charges would destroy his future. Dad, Tyler destroyed his own future when he chose to commit crimes instead of getting a job and telling the truth to people who trust him. My choice is whether to be complicit in covering up his crimes or to protect myself and other potential victims from further exploitation. Tyler fell back into his chair, finally understanding that his manipulation tactics had failed and his criminal behavior would have consequences. What do you want from me, Ashlyn? I want you to contact every vendor you signed contracts with using my name and explain that you committed fraud. I want you to withdraw every loan application that includes my information. I want you to admit to Emma that you've been lying to her about your employment and financial situation. And I want you to get professional help for whatever psychological issues make you feel entitled to steal from people who love you. And if I do all that, you'll drop the criminal charges. Tyler, I'll consider recommending reduced charges in exchange for full restitution and genuine accountability. But the criminal investigation is proceeding regardless of your cooperation, because you've committed serious crimes that extend far beyond just affecting me. As I packed up my evidence folder, I looked at my parents one final time. Mom, Dad, I want you to understand that I love you, but I can't allow that love to be weaponized against my financial security and personal autonomy. Tyler's crimes forced me to choose between protecting myself and protecting him from consequences. I choose protecting myself. Dad nodded slowly, his shoulders sagging with the weight of reality. Ashlyn, we never intended for family loyalty to become financial exploitation. We thought we were helping Tyler transition to adulthood. Dad, helping Tyler transition to adulthood would have involved teaching him to take responsibility for his choices, not teaching him that he could manipulate family members into funding his mistakes. As I left my childhood home for what I suspected might be the final time, I felt a profound sense of closure mixed with sadness. My family had taught me an invaluable lesson about the difference between love and manipulation, between support and exploitation, between loyalty and enabling criminal behavior. Tomorrow, Tyler would begin facing consequences for his crimes, and in 6 days, I would begin my new life in Denver, surrounded by people who celebrated my success rather than seeing it as their personal opportunity. Thursday morning brought a phone call that confirmed my family's true priorities when forced to choose between accountability and denial. Mom called at 7:15 a.m., her voice shrill with panic and accusation. "Ashlyn, how could you do this to us? Tyler came home last night devastated, and your father and I have been up all night trying to figure out how to fix the damage you've caused to this family." "Mom, what damage are you referring to?" "The damage of threatening your brother with prison over what amounts to family financial miscommunication. The damage of destroying Tyler's relationship with Emma over temporary employment challenges. The damage of planning to abandon your family during the most difficult time we've ever faced." I realized that instead of confronting Tyler about his criminal behavior, my parents had spent the night consoling him and rebuilding their narrative of victimization. "Mom, Tyler committed identity theft, fraud, and extortion. These aren't miscommunications or temporary challenges. These are serious crimes with serious consequences. Tyler made some mistakes, but family should handle family problems internally. You don't send your own brother to prison over money, Ashlyn. You just don't do that to people you're supposed to love. Mom, Tyler stole my identity to borrow over $100,000 without my consent. He lied to his fiancée for months about having a job. He threatened to destroy my career if I didn't submit to his financial demands. These aren't mistakes. These are patterns of criminal behavior. You're exaggerating everything to justify your selfish decision to abandon your family responsibilities. Tyler is young and overwhelmed, and instead of helping him learn from his errors, you're trying to destroy his entire future." Dad picked up the extension, his voice carrying a tone of authority and disappointment I remembered from childhood discipline sessions. "Ashlyn, we've made a decision as a family. We're going to hire a lawyer to contest these ridiculous criminal charges, and we're going to seek professional mediation to resolve this conflict without destroying Tyler's life." "Dad, you can hire whatever lawyers you want, but Tyler's criminal behavior has been thoroughly documented and reported to federal authorities. The evidence isn't a matter of family opinion, it's documented proof of identity theft and fraud." Tyler's voice joined the call, and his tone oscillated between fake remorse and barely controlled rage. "Ashlyn, I'm willing to apologize for any misunderstandings about the loan applications, and I'm willing to participate in family counseling to work through our communication problems. But I'm not going to let you send me to prison over family financial planning that got complicated. Tyler, you forged my signature on federal loan documents. You accessed my personal accounts without authorization. You threatened to sabotage my career opportunities. These aren't communication problems. These are felonies. I never meant for things to get this complicated. I was just trying to find ways to fund the wedding and house purchase that would benefit the whole family. Maybe I should have communicated more clearly about involving you in the financial planning, but my intentions were good." I marveled at Tyler's ability to reframe systematic criminal behavior as communication issues with good intentions. "Tyler, your intentions were to steal over $100,000 using my credit and identity. There's no communication framework that makes that behavior acceptable or legal." Mom's voice became increasingly shrill. "Ashlyn, you're being absolutely heartless. Tyler is your baby brother, and he's scared and confused about how his efforts to help the family have been twisted into criminal accusations. Can't you find some compassion for someone you've known and loved his entire life?" Mom, compassion doesn't require enabling criminal behavior. Love doesn't mean accepting theft and fraud. Tyler being my brother makes his betrayal more painful, not less serious. Dad's attempt at negotiation revealed the family's fundamental misunderstanding of the situation. "Ashlyn, what if Tyler pays back any money that was inappropriately borrowed, and we establish clearer communication protocols for future family financial planning? Would that be sufficient to resolve this conflict without involving law enforcement? Dad Tyler didn't borrow money inappropriately. He committed identity theft and fraud. The issue isn't repayment. The issue is that he committed federal crimes that could have destroyed my financial future and credit rating. Tyler's mask slipped again, revealing the angry entitlement that had driven his criminal behavior. Ashlyn, you act like I'm some kind of stranger who attacked you randomly. I'm your brother, and everything I did was intended to benefit our family's financial situation. Maybe my methods weren't perfect, but my heart was in the right place. Tyler criminals always think their hearts are in the right place. That doesn't make their behavior legal or acceptable. Mom's final attempt at emotional manipulation revealed how little she understood about accountability and consequences. Ashlyn, if you proceed with these criminal charges, you'll destroy Tyler's future employment possibilities, his ability to get married and start a family, his entire life trajectory. Is your need for revenge really worth destroying your brother's chance at happiness? Mom Tyler destroyed his own future when he chose to commit crimes instead of getting a job and telling the truth. I'm not seeking revenge. I'm protecting myself and other potential victims from someone who's proven he'll steal from people who trust him. Dad's voice took on a threatening tone. Ashlyn, if you insist on pursuing this vindictive legal action, don't expect to maintain relationships with family members who understand the importance of loyalty and forgiveness. You'll be choosing money over family, and that choice will have permanent consequences for your place in this family. Dad, are you saying that my place in this family is conditional on allowing Tyler to commit crimes against me without consequences? I'm saying that families protect each other, and what you're doing isn't protection, it's destruction. Tyler's final statement revealed the true depth of his entitlement and lack of remorse. Ashlyn, I want you to know that whatever happens with these legal proceedings, I don't blame you for overreacting to what seemed like betrayal. You're my sister, and I love you, and I hope someday you'll understand that everything I did was motivated by family love and financial necessity. After hanging up, I sat in my nearly empty apartment surrounded by boxes packed for my move to Denver and felt a profound sense of clarity about my decision to relocate. My family had chosen to protect Tyler's criminal behavior rather than acknowledge its seriousness. They'd chosen denial over accountability, enabling over consequences, and Tyler's convenience over my safety. That afternoon, I met with Detective Chen to provide the complete documentation of Tyler's crimes and my family's attempts to pressure me into dropping the charges. Detective Chen's response validated everything I'd experienced. Ms. Morrison family financial exploitation cases often involve exactly this kind of pressure, where relatives try to convince victims that love requires accepting criminal behavior. Your family's reaction is unfortunately typical. They're more concerned with protecting the perpetrator from consequences than protecting you from further victimization. Detective Chen, will their attempts to pressure me into dropping charges affect the prosecution? Actually, their pressure tactics strengthen the case because they demonstrate consciousness of guilt. If Tyler's behavior was genuinely innocent, family financial planning, they wouldn't need to pressure you into silence. As I finalized the criminal complaints against Tyler, I realized that my family's meltdown had provided the clarity I needed to move forward without guilt or second-guessing. They'd shown me exactly who they were when forced to choose between protecting a criminal and supporting a victim. In 3 days, I would be living in Denver, beginning a life where my success would be celebrated rather than stolen, where my achievements would belong to me rather than being seen as everyone else's financial opportunity. Tyler would face federal charges for his crimes. My parents would face the consequences of choosing enabling over accountability. And I would finally be free to build a life based on my own choices rather than other people's entitlement. Friday morning arrived with the surreal calm that follows a storm. My apartment was completely packed, except for the essentials I'd need for my final 3 days in town, and the moving truck would arrive Monday morning to transport my life to Denver. I felt like I was living in the pause between my old life ending and my new life beginning. At 8 a.m. sharp, the movers arrived to load everything except my suitcases and the documents I'd need for my Tuesday start date at Sterling Financial. Watching strangers efficiently dismantle the life I'd built felt both liberating and melancholy. Every piece of furniture loaded onto the truck was another connection, severed to the place where my family had systematically planned to exploit my success. I'd deliberately not told my family about the exact timing of my departure, but somehow Tyler appeared in my apartment parking lot as the movers were finishing. He stood next to his car, not approaching, but making his presence known in a way that felt like a final attempt at intimidation. I walked over to him, my phone recording our conversation and my car keys ready for a quick departure if his behavior escalated. "Tyler, you need to leave. Any communication needs to go through my attorney." "Ashlyn, I just wanted to see for myself if you were really going through with abandoning everything we've built as a family." "Tyler, you destroyed what we'd built as a family when you decided to commit crimes against me. I'm not abandoning anything. I'm protecting myself from people who feel entitled to steal from me." Tyler's expression cycled through anger, desperation, and something that might have been genuine remorse. "You know what the worst part of this is? I actually convinced myself that I was helping our family by finding ways to access resources that were just sitting in your accounts unused. I told myself that successful family members have obligations to struggling family members." Tyler's successful family members have opportunities to help struggling family members. They don't have obligations to fund other people's lies and criminal behavior. "I know I messed up, Ashlyn. I know I made terrible decisions and hurt people I love. But did it really have to come to police and lawyers and moving 900 miles away? Couldn't we have found a way to work through this as family?" I studied Tyler's face, looking for signs that his remorse was genuine, rather than just another manipulation tactic designed to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. "Tyler, working through this as family would have required you to take full responsibility for your crimes, make complete restitution to everyone you've harmed, and demonstrate genuine change over time. Instead, you've spent the week denying your criminal behavior, blaming me for overreacting, and recruiting family members to pressure me into accepting your theft. Maybe I handled the aftermath badly, but that doesn't mean the original situation couldn't have been resolved without destroying our relationship. Tyler, you destroyed our relationship when you decided to steal from me. Everything that's happened since then has been consequences of that choice." Tyler leaned against his car, and for the first time in our confrontations, his posture suggested genuine defeat rather than strategic manipulation. "Emma won't take my calls. Mom and Dad are scared about legal fees and what this will do to their reputation in the community. Our extended family thinks I'm either a criminal or a victim, depending on which version of events they've heard. And now you're leaving permanently." "Tyler, these are all consequences of your choices. Emma deserves a partner who tells her the truth about his employment and financial situation. Mom and Dad need to understand that protecting you from consequences taught you to be irresponsible and manipulative. Extended family members deserve accurate information about criminal behavior that affects them, and I deserve to build a life where my success isn't seen as everyone else's opportunity." "What happens now, Ashlyn? Do we just never see each other again? Do you just write off your entire family and start over like we never existed?" I considered his question, carefully recognizing that my answer would define the boundaries for any potential future relationship. "Tyler, that depends entirely on whether you're capable of genuine change and whether you're willing to accept full responsibility for your actions without expecting me to minimize their seriousness or pretend they didn't happen." What would genuine change look like? It would look like you getting a job and keeping it consistently. It would look like you telling the truth to people who trust you even when the truth is inconvenient. It would look like you accepting legal consequences for your crimes without blaming me for reporting them. It would look like you developing empathy for the people you've harmed instead of focusing on how your consequences affect you. Tyler was quiet for a long moment, apparently processing the scope of behavioral change that would be required for any future relationship. "That sounds like becoming a completely different person." Tyler, it sounds like becoming a responsible adult who respects other people's boundaries and autonomy. If that seems like becoming a completely different person, then maybe the person you've been isn't someone worth preserving. As the moving truck pulled away from my apartment complex, carrying my possessions toward a new life in Denver, Tyler made one final statement that revealed more self-awareness than I'd expected from him. Ashlyn, I want you to know that I understand why you're leaving, even if I wish there was another way. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding consequences and expecting other people to clean up my mistakes. Maybe facing real consequences for the first time will teach me things that 25 years of family protection never did. Tyler, I hope you're right about that. But even if you change completely, it doesn't obligate me to rebuild a relationship that was based on my willingness to be exploited. I know. And maybe that's what I need to understand, that relationships aren't about what people owe each other, but about what they choose to give each other. I drove away from my old apartment past the neighborhood where I'd grown up, past the family home, where conversations about making me pay for everything had shattered my sense of belonging, toward the airport where I'd catch my flight to Denver and the life I'd built for myself through merit rather than manipulation. My phone contained recordings of criminal confessions, contact information for victim advocacy services, and text messages from Rebecca Martinez welcoming me to my new professional team. My suitcase contained clothes for job interviews I'd earned through competence rather than family connections. Most importantly, my bank accounts contained money that belonged to me, protected by security measures that prevented access by people who felt entitled to exploit my success. As my plane lifted off toward Denver and the Rocky Mountains came into view, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, excitement about a future that would be determined by my own choices rather than other people's expectations. Tyler would face federal charges for his crimes. My parents would learn that protecting criminals from consequences doesn't constitute love or loyalty, and I would finally discover what it felt like to be valued for who I was rather than what I could provide. 3 hours later, I landed in Denver as a free woman ready to build a life where success was celebrated rather than stolen. 6 months later, I stood in my Denver apartment's living room surrounded by colleagues from Sterling Financial, who'd come to celebrate my first major client presentation success. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of the Rocky Mountains, and the space felt like home in a way that my previous life never had. Rebecca Martinez raised her glass of champagne. To Ashlyn Morrison, whose analysis of the Morrison healthcare restructuring, no relation intended, just landed us our biggest client contract of the year. Everyone laughed at the coincidence of my surname matching our new client, but I felt a deeper irony in rebuilding my professional identity using the same last name that had once made me a target for family financial exploitation. In Denver, Morrison represented competence and analytical excellence, rather than familial obligation to fund other people's poor decisions. Marcus had flown in from my hometown to attend the celebration, and our relationship had deepened from professional financial advisor to genuine romantic partnership. He understood the journey I'd taken from family exploitation to personal autonomy, and he celebrated my success without calculating how it might benefit him financially. Ashlyn, Marcus said privately as the party wound down, I have some updates about Tyler's legal situation if you're ready to hear them. I'm ready. Tyler pled guilty to federal identity theft and fraud charges 3 weeks ago. He received 2 years in federal prison with supervised probation afterward. The plea agreement required full restitution to you and formal apologies to every person he deceived, including Emma. How did he seem during the sentencing? According to Detective Chen, Tyler appeared to genuinely understand the seriousness of his crimes for the first time. He didn't blame you or minimize his behavior during his statement to the court. He took full responsibility and expressed genuine remorse for the harm he'd caused. I felt a complex mixture of sadness and relief. Tyler was finally facing consequences for his criminal behavior, but the consequences were also destroying any possibility of rebuilding our relationship in the foreseeable future. Marcus, what about my parents? They've been attending family therapy to understand how their enabling behavior contributed to Tyler's criminal development. Your father sent you a letter. Detective Chen forwarded it through your attorney to ensure no inappropriate contact. I read Dad's letter that evening, sitting in my home office overlooking the Denver skyline. His words reflected a level of self-awareness I'd never expected from him. Ashlyn, your mother, and I have spent 6 months learning about financial exploitation within families, and we've come to understand that we failed you as parents in fundamental ways. We taught Tyler that his needs justified manipulating people who loved him, and we taught you that your success made you responsible for funding other people's failures. We turned family relationships into financial transactions, where love became conditional on your willingness to be exploited. We don't expect forgiveness, and we don't expect you to rebuild a relationship with us. We understand that you needed to protect yourself from people who saw your achievements as their opportunities. We're grateful that you had the strength to choose your own well-being over our manipulation, even when it meant facing tremendous family pressure to enable criminal behavior. Tyler is receiving counseling in prison, and he's beginning to understand the difference between genuine financial hardship and entitled manipulation. He asks about you sometimes, but he doesn't expect contact or forgiveness. He understands that rebuilding trust would require years of consistent behavioral change that he hasn't yet demonstrated. We love you, Ashlyn, and we're proud of the life you've built in Denver. We hope someday you'll be able to think of us without anger or hurt, even if you never choose to rebuild family relationships that were based on exploitation rather than genuine care. 3 weeks later, I received a letter from Emma, who had moved to Seattle and was thriving in a marketing position with a tech startup. Her letter brought updates that surprised me with their positivity. Ashlyn, I want to thank you for your honesty about Tyler's deception. Leaving him was the most difficult decision I'd ever made, but it was also the decision that saved my financial and emotional future. I've learned that healthy relationships are built on truth rather than fantasy, and I'm grateful you helped me understand that love doesn't require accepting lies. I've been dating someone wonderful, a software engineer named David, who values honesty and shares financial responsibilities equitably. We're planning a simple wedding next spring that we're paying for ourselves, and I finally understand what it feels like to build a life with someone who sees my happiness as more important than his convenience. Tyler has written to apologize for his deception, and his letters suggest genuine remorse and personal growth. I don't plan to maintain contact with him, but I hope prison counseling helps him become someone capable of honest relationships in the future. On a snowy Sunday in February, exactly 1 year after I'd overheard that devastating conversation about making me pay for everything, I sat in a Denver coffee shop, video chatting with my maternal grandmother, Nana, who had become my strongest family supporter. Ashlyn, honey, I want to apologize again for almost giving your parents money for Tyler's house down payment. I should have talked to you directly instead of believing their version of family financial planning. Nana, you were manipulated by people who had practiced lying to family members they were supposed to protect. That's not your fault. I've learned a lot this year about financial exploitation within families, and I've changed my banking to prevent anyone from pressuring me into financial decisions. I've also been talking to other elderly friends about protecting themselves from family members who see their savings as family resources. Nana, I'm proud of you for recognizing manipulation tactics and protecting yourself. Ashlyn, I want you to know that I see what you've accomplished in Denver, and I'm amazed by your strength and independence. You built a life based on your own merit and choices, and that's exactly what young people should do. That evening, as I prepared my presentation for the following day's board meeting, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ashlyn, this is Tyler. I'm not supposed to contact you directly, but I wanted you to know that I understand now why you had to leave and report my crimes. Prison counseling has helped me recognize that I felt entitled to other people's money and success because I'd never learned to create my own. I don't expect forgiveness or contact, but I want you to know that your decision to protect yourself forced me to face reality for the first time in my life. I hope you're happy in Denver. You deserve to build a life where your success belongs to you. I stared at the message for a long time, processing the first communication from Tyler that didn't contain manipulation, blame, or expectation of my response. His words suggested genuine growth and accountability, but they also confirmed my decision to build a life where family relationships would be based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. The next morning, I stood before Sterling Financial's board of directors, presenting analysis that would reshape our approach to corporate restructuring and generate millions in revenue. My colleagues respected my expertise, celebrated my contributions, and valued my judgment without calculating how my success might benefit their personal finances. After the presentation, Rebecca pulled me aside with news that felt like the universe rewarding my courage to choose myself over family manipulation. Ashlyn, the board, was so impressed with your analysis that they're creating a new senior director position specifically for you. The promotion comes with a $40,000 salary increase and leadership of our new corporate restructuring division. That evening, I called Marcus to share the news, then sat on my apartment balcony watching the sunset paint the mountains in brilliant colors. My phone contained congratulatory messages from colleagues who celebrated my achievements without strings attached. My bank account contained money that belonged entirely to me, protected by security measures that prevented access by people who felt entitled to exploit my success. Most importantly, my future contained possibilities determined by my own choices rather than other people's expectations. I'd learned that true family supports your growth rather than exploiting your success, that love isn't transactional, and that protecting yourself from financial and emotional manipulation isn't selfish. It's necessary for building an authentic life where relationships are based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. Tyler was learning accountability in federal prison. My parents were learning about enabling behavior in family therapy. Emma was building a healthy relationship based on honesty rather than deception. And I was discovering what it felt like to be valued for who I was rather than what I could provide. Sometimes protecting yourself from people who claim to love you is the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself. Sometimes walking away from family manipulation is the only way to preserve your capacity for genuine relationships. And sometimes choosing your own well-being over other people's convenience is exactly the choice that enables everyone to grow into healthier versions of themselves. As the stars emerged over the Denver skyline, I felt grateful for the painful conversation that had forced me to choose between accepting exploitation and choosing freedom. That choice had led to a life where success was celebrated rather than stolen, where achievements belonged to the person who earned them, and where family relationships could be rebuilt on foundations of respect rather than financial obligation. Have you ever faced a situation where family loyalty conflicted with your personal boundaries and financial security? How did you navigate the difficult balance between supporting loved ones and protecting yourself from exploitation? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about overcoming family manipulation and building authentic relationships. Share this with anyone who might benefit from understanding that love doesn't require accepting criminal behavior and that choosing yourself isn't selfish when others are choosing to exploit you. Thank you for joining me on this journey from family exploitation to personal freedom. Remember that your success belongs to you. Your boundaries are valid, and your future should be determined by your own choices rather than other people's entitlement. Wishing you the courage to choose yourself when others choose to manipulate you, and the wisdom to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial obligation.